The new album, Art of the State, is the one that we really are stepping out and saying, hey, we're a band. This is not Kansas. This is AD. It's a total separate entity.
Today, a Crosswalk exclusive. Brian Quincy Newcomb talks with members of AD.
Welcome to Crosswalk with your hosts Kathy Lockwood and Mark Fisher.
And along with our AD interview, we'll have music from Russ Taff, Youth Choir, and Kaja. Right now, from Art of the State, here's AD with The Only Way to Have a Friend.
Our guests today on Crosswalk are members of AD. Kerry Livgren, Dave Hope, Warren Ham, Dennis Holt, and Michael Gleason. In the first of a two-part series, music critic Brian Quincy Newcomb explores AD's recent decision to pursue a Christian identity. He reveals the undercurrent of faith which has kept the band going through some tough times.
The band first came together during recording sessions for the Timeline LP. What had begun as a Kerry Livgren solo project actually ended up as the debut album of a brand new band. Although eagerly welcomed by many music fans, AD met with a cool reception from their record company. While this remains a ticklish subject with the group, drummer Dennis Holt did have this to say about it.
Basically, CBS said they didn't want a good guy image. That's what we were to them, a good guy image. They had just signed Quiet Riot. When he said sex, drugs, rock and roll, I know that's an overused phrase, but that's a direct quote. They said that's what's selling, that's what the kids want, which I disagree with. They told us that if we're not willing to do that sort of thing, that we have no place in this business.
However, AD did find a place for their message by forming their own record label, Kerygma Records. Dennis Holt explains.
This was last summer when we got home from Cornerstone. And this was when we decided that we weren't going to compromise and we were going to have to just do what we felt the Lord was doing. And Kerry called me up and he goes, you're not going to believe this. I'm writing like I've never written. I just sit down at the piano and it's just flowing. And he said, before I'd sit down and go, okay, what is CBS not going to like? He goes, what can I say that I'll still present the gospel, but CBS won't mind? And he looked and he just sat there at the piano and put his hands on the piano and goes, Lord, I'm sorry. I can't believe this. And so we just said, Lord, whatever you want us to write, that's what we're going to do. And Kerry called me. He was excited. And we ended up demoing 26 songs. 20-something songs. I mean, when we picked the songs for Art of the State, there was a lot to choose from. Warren and Mike and Kerry had written. And it's not writing for the Christian market or for secular hits or anything. It was just writing from the heart.
From Art of the State, that's AD with Lead Me to Reason. You're listening to Crosswalk, and we continue now with our exclusive interview with members of AD.
Kerry Livgren focuses on his personal vision for the band.
Primarily, my vision, and I would underline the word my, because I'm aware of the fact that it is my vision, and I'm not altogether sure that it's the Lord's, based on the predicament that we're previously in, where my vision and our vision was to be a secular band, and the Lord's idea is, no, you're going to be a, quote, Christian entity in the music business. But my vision is to be evangelistic. I mean, the thing that I would most like to see happen is simply to see people come to know Jesus Christ and know that I somehow played a part in it. Actually, I don't even care if I played a part in it. I just want to see it.
Life hasn't been easy for AD.
They're sometimes misunderstood by the public and the press.
They're haunted by legal obligations, and they're frustrated by what they perceive to be the amateurism in some aspects of the Christian music industry.
Yet they go on, sustained by their faith in the God who chose them for a purpose. Dave Hope, AD's bass player, sees it this way.
The reason I'm in it, if I'm in it, all I know is the Lord asked me, He wanted me in a band with a bunch of believers. And I knew that, and He's asked me to give my testimony, and those two things is about the only thing He's asked me. The rest of it's God's work. I don't really worry about it.
Yeah, you just play.
Some things I'm obedient in, and I'll do what I can, and the rest of the things He changes and cleans up my act.
Drags you back.
Some things I'm not very obedient in. In fact, I butt heads a lot with him, but fortunately he always wins because he's powerful and he's loving.
Our guest today on Crosswalk is Kerry Livgren, who for many years was one of the leading forces behind the group Kansas.
4 years ago, he received Jesus Christ as his Savior, and it didn't take long for his Christian beliefs to express themselves in his work.
He wrote an autobiography, Seeds of Change, and released a solo album of the same name while still a member of Kansas.
While making a second solo album, Timeline, AD was formed, and they've gone on to complete a new album called Art of the State. Kerry talks now about the band's rough beginnings.
We started playing in the spring of '84, playing live, and the group had so much difficulty getting work of any kind, primarily because at that point in time I think we were misled as to what the Lord's will was for the group. We were trying desperately to be a secular band, and we could not, let me put it this way, every conceivable door shut in our face. And because of that, it became obvious after a period of time that it was almost as if the Lord said, if you're going to preach my gospel, you're going to do it through my church, not outside of it. It was kind of an amazing revelation. It was like, oh, of course. And but the result was we only played 10 shows in the whole year. And there was not time for a band to gel in 10 shows.
And then take a year off.
Yeah, exactly. It was sort of devastating. It was very difficult for us. And we started playing on this tour, which began in March. And we played more shows in the first leg of that tour than we did in the whole previous year. And the band's just suddenly started to gel and really come into its own. As far as what I feel, it's safe to say that I am having more fun and enjoying the playing of music more than I have in many, many years. If no other reason than the knowledge that we're doing it for the right reason. And seeing some spiritual fruit and preaching the gospel from the stage, which is entirely, to me, I see a clear separation between the two. When we talk, it's one thing. When we play, it's another. And when we play, there's a certain joy in the playing that I haven't felt in a long time. So I'm secure in the knowledge that I'm in the right place. As far as how we respond and interact with the Christian music, quote, business, there's still a lot of big question marks in my mind, and there were many surprises, and it's just going to take some time for me to really formulate my opinions on that.
I know that you're a voracious reader, and that you also are a thinker. What have you been reading? What have you been thinking? How is your Christian, since you've become a Christian since that book was released? What is it, 2-3 years ago now?
Mm-hmm. As far as theology, I suppose I'm pretty fundamental. I don't mean that in terms of politically.
Okay.
Theologically, I'm very fundamental, but non-denominational and non-aligned with any particular movement or sect. As far as my reading, I'm currently devouring everything I can get my hands on that has to do with the subject of the influence of Plato on Christianity, which is a subject that's virtually untapped and the ramifications of which are rather large in their scope. Neoplatonism has invaded the early church and has been with us ever since. And it's
responsible for the basic Western, spectrum, if you do Greek Orthodox.
Exactly.
And Russian Orthodox. You have written a lot of the music on the new record. A lot of it's intriguing and not Kansas-like, which I find I'm very grateful for.
Me too.
And can you reflect on some of the songs? We Are the Man, the first one that comes to mind, but that's because it's so completely different.
That's going to be one of those songs that I have to explain. Basically, it's a somewhat slightly humorous look at the human race in a pathetic sense. And the song simply points back to Adam and the fall of man and the fact that every human being right now is in a corrupted state due to that fall. And it's simply a hypothetical person asking Adam, why did you do it? Because now we are the men being...
the ones that left with what you left us with.
Yeah, Homo sapiens, right.
From Art of the State, that's AD with We Are the Men.
Some people worship money, some worship cars or prestige. Some people worship leaders, and some may even idolize Christian artists.
Well, in the short time that I've been in, again, quote, Christian music, the one thing I see that's disturbing is a certain sort of idolatry of Christian music. I stand on the stage, I look out at the crowds, and they're reacting exactly the same way as it was when I was in Kansas in a secular band. Nothing's different. Now, maybe that points to me. Maybe that points to AD. Maybe we're doing something wrong. Maybe we're doing exactly what we're supposed to be doing, and the crowd is reacting wrong. Again, it's something I haven't formulated my opinion to the point where I think I have an answer to that, but it is scary. It's disturbing to me. And ultimately the answer, of course, is, for me, is if my heart is right before God and this band is right before God and the crowd is making idols of us, then that's, the same thing they did to John the Baptist. And I mean, that can happen to people in the ministry. The answer is not to get out of the ministry. No. The answer is just to do everything you can to draw the attention away from yourself. Therefore, I've set a goal, which is there's nothing I would like to see more than when people leave an AD concert that they're thinking more about Jesus Christ than they're thinking about AD.
Crosswalk with your hosts, Kathy Lockwood and Mark Fisher.
Special thanks to the members of AD and to FM Management for their help with today's show. The interview was conducted by Brian Quincy Newcomb.